Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength BodCast.
Hey everyone, today on the podcast, I am talking with my good friend Chuck McGee. Chuck was actually one of the first people I had on the podcast a few years ago after I read the book Breathe by James Nestor. Anyway, Chuck is also known as the Ice Viking, and he talks all things wonderful about breath. And I'm letting you know who he is right now because as this podcast starts, we're actually in the middle of a conversation, but I left this on there because this could be a useful conversation that we were having that you also may want to eavesdrop on. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening to the Original Strength podcast. Without further ado, here's Chuck McGee.
And how are you?
Fantastic. I get my stitches out today.
What do you have stitches for?
I had, I think it's called laparoscopic shoulder surgery 15 days ago.
Oh, wow. How is your shoulder?
It is set just so that my chair is holding it so that the sling doesn't have to. Playing at the park with my son in January of 2024, and he took a fast turn, so I grabbed the swing set to make a fast turn, and instead of rotating, my arm went
Oh,
right out of socket. And the surgery, which is 3 chopstick-sized holes in my shoulder, reattached the cartilage to the rotator cuff and shaved the bursa off the bone, so that my arm can move. Well, not my right arm because it's still healing, but my right arm would be able to move without impingement. But as you're in the health and wellness world, they gave me a shoulder sling that restricts diaphragmatic
right.
movement. It almost pushes you into a sympathetic breath so that your healing is delayed. So I wear the sling when I have to, but if I can adjust myself so that my chair is doing the work that the sling would do, making sure my shoulder is held, and if I need to raise it a little bit, I raise it so nope, now it's in the right spot. I can access the lateral movement of my lower ribs. I don't have something pulling on me here that's giving me neck and shoulder issues throughout the day. Um, Other than that, it's great. Like, I mean, yeah, I've got some PT I need to do, but it's a
Yeah.
hopeful hurt, not the oh, I'm gonna have to deal with a shoulder that hurts for the rest of my life kind of pain, which is just mind-numbingly depressive. It's the pain that's getting better. Um, they gave me a bunch of opioids and like, we want you to take these until they're gone. And I was like, that's not a thing I'm gonna do because then I'll be addicted to opioids. You guys gave me a bunch.
Right.
So I used proper breathing mechanics to reduce my perceived pain
Right.
level. Slowed my breath down, breathing in and out through the nose to vasodilate. Started humming to add more nitric oxide to aid in vasodilation. Um, Nothing like I move the energy of my third chakra. Just this is how the body works. Let's optimize these tools we're using. And like the doctor's like, I are you look like you're in week 4 or 5 of recovery instead of week 2. And that's a nice thing
That
to
is a
know.
nice thing to hear.
But if I was doing it just as I was told, the sling would prevent me from breathing in a way that's actually helpful to the pain. The the medication thrashes your digestive tract. So that's compounding on it. It affects your cognitive abilities because pain is blinding. So, like, if I did it their way, I wouldn't be healing as fast. That doesn't mean I think it's wrong. I just think there's a little more work we could do on that.
And that's actually why I wanted to talk to you because you're like a breathing genius, and
Well,
you
thank
say
you.
really cool things.
I do my best.
So,
I do my
ladies and
best.
gentlemen, I am talking to Chuck McGee, the Iced Viking, and you just came in the middle of a conversation.
Hello and good day.
Chuck, how would you describe yourself? Because you gave me a really long new title for what you do the last time we were talking, and I don't think I'll do it justice.
Well, that's the joy of multiple traumatic brain injuries is I don't remember what I said. So I'll just give it a go from the cuff. Respiratory functional
That's what you
specialties.
told me.
Breathing. Yeah, breathing is just in and out. Respiration is the chemical exchange that happens within our body. So, not only am I looking to improve how you're inhaling and exhaling, but I'm looking to help optimize the chemical exchange within your body. And there are some tips and tricks that can help with that, but mostly it's paying attention. Um, and I just got off of a meeting right before this one that was like an aha moment. And it was that the heart sends 60 times more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Right? So all of these tools we're given are psychological tools to optimize our brain when really we need physiological tools to optimize our heart rate. And the only lever that I have found that consistently control your heart rate is your breath. So by slowing your breath down, lengthening that exhale, you slow your heart rate down, which then tells your mind, I'm safe right now. But if you're in an advanced stress state, there's not a lot of psychological tools that are going to be effective until you can consciously reduce that heart rate. It's going to keep sending that signal that something's okay. And what I love about your work is you hit posture harder than most people I know. And you cannot take a proper breath without proper posture, and you cannot be in proper posture without a proper breath. And it's not like we're looking to open your third chakra or have you reach a transcendent state. I'm just trying to help you get through Tuesday. Like, and by being aware that your posture, well, on a phone, is not helpful. You've got to give yourself the support you need. And then maybe all of those psychological tools will be effective. But if we're not paying attention to our physiological responses, we're basically being we're at our body's whim and control. We can't use all of this amazing gray matter that's up here. We're in a reactionary emotional state. The limbic brain is in control. So yeah, it's basics and foundational stuff. Like why? Like I have this great psychological tool. Has it ever worked? No, but someday it might. I'm not bashing psychology. I think it's really an amazing study and it's an amazing field. I just think not enough people are looking at the physiological responses that happen within your body.
All right, so let's start there. What happens like to a person's body if they're not breathing properly? Like can you give us the gist of it? I know the brain doesn't feel safe, and that already sounds like that could cause a lot.
Well, so I'm going to say you're in proper posture. I'm going to assume that you've got that nailed. Maybe not a correct assumption, but if you're breathing faster than you metabolically need, and you can achieve that nasal breathing, so it's not just nasal breathing. We need to work on the cadence as well as what you're doing physiologically. You're breathing off CO2. So CO2 is not a bad gas. CO2 is a vasodilator. It tells your veins and arteries to open up. So if I'm breathing faster than I should be, usually most people are mouth breathing and they're breathing vertically instead of laterally. Their veins and arteries constrict. They're not getting as optimal oxygenation to the extremities and brain. I mean, you're getting oxygen to these places, but not as well as you could. So your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, and your perceived stress level is already higher than it should be simply because you're breathing faster than your body needs you to within that moment. So a fast breath increase in stress. Now you couple that with poor posture or someone doom scrolling on their phone or sitting in this pose that everyone calls the sad person pose, but then you hold a phone in your hand and it's normal. This posture tells me I'm not okay.
Yes.
So now if I'm not okay posturally and I'm breathing faster because I can't take a proper breath anymore, my blood pressure's up, my perceived stress level is up. So now if anything sideways comes at me, I'm already that close to freaking out instead of having this huge cushion that I would have if my posture was correct, my breath is correct, it's nice and slow. If it's nice and slow, I'm holding a little more CO2, I'm breathing nasally in and out, a little bit more nitric oxide, not nitrous. I wish we produced
That would be
nitrous
funny.
oxide. That would be awesome. That would be literally. And, and instead, nitric oxide, antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial, vasodilator. So the veins and arteries, which are the highways and byways to deliver blood and oxygen to us on a cellular level, open up. They make it more efficient. They make it more effective. So now your perceived stress level is significantly lower. If your exhale is just a little longer than your inhale, you're leaning into the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, the rest, relax, and digest. Otherwise, your body thinks it's in a, not even thinks, feels that it's in a sympathetic state, fight, flight, or fawn, or freeze, and you're always reacting. You're here because you're telling yourself there's threats everywhere. And even if you're not consciously saying, well, there's threats everywhere, that's what you're whispering to your body. So psychologically, you know, neat. You've got tools to help, but physiologically, you're stepping into chaos. And what I can control as someone who's had lots of concussions is not my mind or my mental outlook, but I can control my breath and my posture. And those are, I mean, people are like, well, I can control my mind. And my challenge to anyone out there who thinks you have your mind locked down, don't eat for 24 hours and then try and make cognitive decisions. That's just it. Just 24 hours. Just be hungry. Be hungry and then try and think clearly. You'll be my hero if you can. Most people can't.
But wouldn't you say or guess, but I know, well, if you could take the proper breath, couldn't that help you psychologically though? Maybe with a more clearer mind?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But how many people are learning or teaching the proper breath? You're one of the few people I know who teaches posture and proper body movement. It's a rare thing. So yeah, psychologically you give yourself the edge if you can influence the physiology. And what's great about it, as you know posturally, I don't need you to believe me or believe in proper posture for it to work. Like, I don't need you to believe in electricity for a light switch to work. You just turn it on and the light turns on, regardless of what you believe. So, I don't need people to believe me that the breath will help. This is physiologically what happens within the body. This is how we're manipulating it. And for like a traumatic brain injury, if I can check my posture and slow my breath down, those cognitive tools I've been given are really helpful. But if I can't stop that cycle, it doesn't matter what cognitive tool I have, I'm not in a place where it's going to hit me right. It's just going to frustrate me because it's not working. It's going to bring more tension into my body. But if I can check my posture, check my breath, now those psychological tools hit as hard as they need to. And what I'm not saying, please don't misconstrue. This is not an instead of. I don't think you should be doing breath work instead of seeing a therapist. I think you should be doing breath work and checking your posture in addition to all of these things. So it's not like one or the other. It's both and.
Right on.
They both make each other more effective. And when you're teaching someone to work out to use their body effectively, I bet you can tell when someone's going to gas out by how they're breathing and
Oh
how
yeah.
they're standing. And you don't need their belief for your information on their body to tell you what it's telling you. Shoulders dropped, head forward, face slack. They're probably not going to have fun for the rest of
Well,
the
if
workout.
you're playing a sport against somebody, that's exactly what you want to see. Like I want to
Well,
see the other
in,
team mouth breathing and slouching and looking all frustrated.
that my daughter plays tennis for her high school, and every time I see her opponent's mouth breathing, I'm like, all right, you've got an
Yep.
edge. Don't mouth
Yep.
breathe. And so you're right. If I'm at a negotiating table or I'm playing sports, I want the other people to be doing those things, but I don't want to be doing them myself. I want them to run with their head over their hips. I don't want them running upright. I want them mouth breathing as they move because their endurance is going out the window. They may have a burst of energy that's pretty phenomenal, but it's not sustainable.
For the listener, do you have a quick tip or cue for like proper posture? You had mentioned to me before the king's posture versus the peasant's pose. Do you have any quick ways to help the listener get in the right position?
So we can tell you everything we know about proper posture, and then you will try and think about that correctly. And to think about it, it's ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over heels. If you're sitting, feet flat on the floor, knees at 90 degrees, hips at 90 degrees, elbows at 90 degrees, eyes parallel with the ground. Um, but all you need to do to stand in proper posture is take 2 or 3 steps backwards. No thought required. Take 2 steps back, and your body will naturally assume as correct of a posture as you can step into. Now, if you've got physiological ailments that prevent that, you'll see those, but all you need to do is take 2 steps back. That's it. And literally and figuratively, that is going to be helpful for almost every situation you can ever encounter.
So we got posture for the proper breath. What are there any other things a person needs to for the proper breath to put that together?
Well, it's a nasal inhale and exhale, and you want your jaw to be relaxed. You don't want your teeth to be touching. You want them to be about a millimeter apart with your tongue resting at the roof of your mouth. And to get your tongue there, we get to do my favorite exercise, which is smile big, eyebrows up and swallow, and your tongue should naturally go to the roof of your mouth. Now, if you have a narrow palate or a tongue tie, that might not be possible. Go see a myofunctional therapist or a dentist that specializes in airway health. They'll be able to help you. But you don't want to push your tongue against your teeth. That can actually misalign your teeth. You don't want to do that. The tongue only pushes into the palate. And to keep it there, once you smile big, eyebrows up, and swallow, swallow again, and that natural pressure will keep your tongue there. You want it there all day long. You have a piece of fascia, which is the sausage like casing around your muscles, that goes from your tongue all the way down through your body to the tips of your toes. And when your tongue is engaged, you engage that fascia and support your whole body. Without your tongue in that right spot, your body isn't as supported as it could be. And the king's posture is proper posture. Ears over shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over heels, and it's queen's posture too, ladies. With a lateral expansion of the upper ribs, lateral expansion of the lower ribs. So I don't want to see my hands rise up like so. I want to see them, and I'm not moving my hands. My ribs are doing the work to come apart so that the rib cage opens and the lungs can inflate. Put your fingers on these lower ribs here, or I learned the term rib basket. Kind of dig in, and if you want to curse at me, that's about right. And as you push in, you want to see these ribs push your hands apart from each other rather than rise vertically, like so. You want that lateral motion of the lower ribs, lateral motion of the upper ribs. And what's amazing is for people not taking a proper breath, you'll see the neck flare because that's what's needed to lift the rib cage. Jaw relaxed, neck relaxed, lateral expansion of the lower and upper ribs, and that is a biomechanically correct breath. That is how we're supposed to be breathing. And whether it's stress, pain, how you sit at your desk, how you're on your phone, any bad habit you've picked up can alter that. And what's the most interesting part of that for me is if I bring my head forward even an inch or two, the first thing that gets compromised is my rib cage. Even an inch forward. So you've got to act, stay in king's posture. Take 2 steps back. Take that nice lateral breath. And know when you're not paying attention, you're not going to see this big expansion in movement. When you're not paying attention, it should look like this. Not that big movement, but you should still be getting that lateral expansion with every breath. And for those of you who are like, oh, I'm going to do this, realize that if you're taking 20,000 breaths a day and you've been breathing wrong for just a year, that is 7.3 million muscle movements we have to work against. This does not change overnight. You've got to practice. You've got to find a reason to check in. Take 2 steps back when you remember. I set 5 alarms on my phone that go off throughout the day. And my goal is when the alarm goes off that I don't have to adjust my posture or my breath. However, when the alarm goes off, I find myself having to adjust my posture and my breath. And this is my passion and what I do for a living. And I still have to catch myself.
So neuroplasticity is a game of numbers, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Game of numbers. I mean, if you've been breathing wrong for 10 years, that's 73 million muscle movements. To think we can shift that needle in a day, I mean, I love that level of hubris, but that is just a massive level of hubris. It's not possible.
So
I mean,
yeah,
it's work.
there you go. Anything worth having is worth working for, though.
And not just a little work, because it takes a lot of work. And the worry I have is that people hyperfixate on it and they don't give themselves as much grace as they need. Well, I was told I have to do it this way and I'm still getting it wrong. Man, it's only been a month. It takes about 6 months to go from mouth breathing to unconsciously competently nasal breathing. Give yourself half a year. Slow everything down. Work your CO2 threshold. The only way to reduce your unconscious respiratory rate is to reduce how sensitive you are to CO2. If you've been mouth breathing or breathing faster than you need to, your CO2 sensitivity is lower. Your body's telling you to breathe more often. You have to push that needle. That's uncomfortable.
So
It's not a
so
fun
could
thing.
you give a quick, like you kind of just did, but like what is CO2 threshold and then how can you improve it?
So it's how sensitive you are to the buildup of carbon dioxide in your body. Now, as we know, carbon dioxide is a vasodilator. So the more you hold, I mean, there's a certain point where your veins won't dilate anymore, but the more CO2 you can hold as you exercise, the more dilated your veins and arteries get, which allows optimized blood flow to the muscles doing the work. When you get enough CO2 in your system, something called the Bohr effect can happen. The Bohr effect is your body goes, wow, there's a lot of CO2. Red blood cells, we need you to freely disassociate with that O2 and we need to pick up CO2 a little bit faster. And because everything's dilated and open, you're getting better delivery of oxygen, you're getting better recovery of CO2, better exchange within the lungs. But most people aren't able to hit the Bohr effect because their CO2 threshold that should be here is way lower than it should be. That urge to, I need to breathe, that has nothing to do with a lack of oxygen. That is your body's buildup of CO2, it bypassing the amygdala, going straight to the reptilian brain, saying, we're in trouble, breathe now. So Oxygen Advantage has some incredible exercises, as does Buteyko. One is known as Breathe Light, where you put yourself in a state where you're breathing less than you need. You can feel about a teaspoon of air hunger. And for everybody listening, we just take a breath in through the nose, out through the nose, and I want you to wait until you have the urge to breathe. And when you feel the urge to breathe, I want you to slowly breathe in and not quite satisfy it. Leave just about this much air hunger, where this breath here, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm not going to go that deep. I'm going to go a little less. Breathe light, hence the name. And I'm going to allow that air hunger to sit in my system. I am consciously leaning up against my CO2 threshold. And you know you've gone too far when you go, and you need to take that gaspy breath in. Too much. But consciously pushing your CO2 sensitivity further and further is going to increase your endurance, lower your blood pressure, lower your heart rate, and increase athletic output. And to the best of my knowledge, the only way to lower your unconscious respiratory rate, your unconscious breaths per minute, is to work your CO2 threshold. I don't know of another way to do it. Posture, biomechanics, CO2 sensitivity are the three pillars that I hold most important for functional respiration. And freedivers have another tool. They use CO2 tables. You've got to make these yourself. You can look up just how to make CO2 and O2 tables on the internet. Find a freediving site. Don't just go to random internet guy. Find a site that specializes in this. And whereas Breathe Light is you kind of feel into it, CO2 tables are very structured. You breathe for this long, you hold for this long. You breathe for this long, and you hold for this long. So if you need a structured way to build your CO2 threshold, try the CO2 tables. If you're happy to just kind of sit and feel what your body's doing, Breathe Light is an incredible exercise that I cannot recommend enough.
That's awesome. And that is exactly what I wanted you to share with everyone. I got a question for you because you're the first person that ever put a word to it or two words to it that I was highly aware of this. But what is email apnea?
Email apnea, it's I would go as far to say it's one of the most undiagnosed epidemics sweeping corporate America today. And we talked about posture, we talked about breath. So when someone gets to work first thing in the morning, they're generally in a suboptimal posture. And if you're in a suboptimal posture, you have a suboptimal breath. You're breathing in and out through your mouth. You've got tunnel vision, and then you open that first email and you stop breathing. You
Yep.
hold your breath and you don't realize you're holding your breath. So it's an unconscious apnea. And what happens here is when you hit that CO2 threshold, you get the, ah, just that lovely dose of anxiety and stress in the morning that makes every workday fantastic. And you're unconsciously holding your breath, you're unconsciously hitting that CO2 threshold. That just brings anxiety. Consciously working your CO2 threshold is fantastic. You know what's going on. Unconscious mouth breathing is bad. Conscious mouth breathing can lead to a lot of good effects if you're doing it correctly. Unconscious breath holds, no good. You have to be doing these things consciously, or you're just stimulating parts of your physiology, and that just brings anxiety and stress. So if you find yourself coming to work in the morning and your jaw's tight, you've got this stress right here in your shoulders, and you get jolted with the that's probably indicative of email apnea.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, the best way is when you know you're going to check your email, consciously remind yourself to keep breathing. I don't need to hold my breath right now.
And I love how you just explained that too, because I always tell people like if you're holding your breath unconsciously, you're telling your brain you're afraid. And then somebody's like, but what about when I'm trying to lift weights or do yoga I'm like, but you're doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
that's a conscious decision, and your brain's not afraid of what you're doing because you're purposefully doing it.
And most of the time, you know the outcome of what could happen. So you've prepared your brain. I'm going to be doing this. Let's go. But when it's not aware, it automatically defaults to sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze. And then there you go. You've just stimulated that part of your nervous system unconsciously. And even if you're having the best day in the world, like the email that caused the email apnea is congratulations, you've just won $20,000. That's still, you're freezing. You're telling your body something is not right. And unfortunately, oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying this. We see it a lot in infants where parents are like, just let them cry it out. Please stop doing that. They're crying it out. And the reason they stop crying is because they're calling out for their pack to come help them, because humans are pack mammals. And then nothing comes, so the parents are off hunting. So what we're teaching that infant is that they have to be quiet so that they don't attract predators while the parents are getting food to come feed them. They'll eventually come. But what's been shown is just peak cortisol levels that never normalize in an infant. So yeah, it works, but it's not working for the reason people think it's working. We're spiking their cortisol levels, telling them to be afraid, and in that fear state, they're just quiet. So yeah, your infant's not crying anymore, but I don't like the methodology you use to physiologically make that happen. And for all you parents out there who are like, look, I'm just looking for quiet. I've got 3 kids. I feel what you're saying. This is just my opinion. You don't have to take it. I'm just some guy. But I don't think that's cool to do to someone who cannot psychologically understand why you're just letting them cry it out. I don't like that. So I'm going to say I don't like that because I've got a big mouth and I'm okay with that.
So, speaking of children, you actually discovered a technique that you use to calm yourself down when you could not get one of your children to go to bed.
The 4-year-old, yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I was pretty fascinated by that.
So it's called the cognitive reset protocol. And basically, it's based off ratio breathing. Now, I did not discover ratio breathing, but I did discover this ratio. And it's in for 8 seconds, all nasal. And you know a breath is a parasympathetic leaning breath when the exhale is 1.5 times longer than the inhale. So as I was breathing in 8, I was breathing out 12. It was a 20-second breath, 3 breaths a minute, and it should have calmed me down. I was next to a chaotic, insane 4-year-old who didn't want to go to sleep, and it wasn't calming me down. I was getting very upset. And of course, they mirror you. So as I was getting upset, he was like, going crazy. So I added a 5-second hold. In for 8, hold for 5, out for 12, hold for 5. On repeat, that's 2 breaths a minute. And if I called it by what I want to call it, everyone's brain would be like, no, we can't do that. It is a 30-second breath. In for 8, hold for 5, out for 12, hold for 5. Those holds, and if that's too much, in 6, hold 2, out 9, hold 2. Just bring the numbers down. 1.5 times your exhale, add a little hold. It's those holds where the magic occurs. Because I take the breath in and I stop. And as I exhale, nice and slow. And if you can't do a 12-second exhale through the nose, purse your lips. Because we don't want the exhale to be like where you're holding stress and turning red. Not what we're aiming for. In for 8, nice and soft. Hold for 5, out for 12, nice and soft. 2 minutes, 4 breaths is all you need to have the minimum help reset your brain. I started falling into this pattern. 8 minutes later, he was asleep. And 16 breaths, he's out cold. So anytime I'm helping him put to bed, I fall into this breathing pattern and he falls asleep. I use it between meetings. I use it anytime I'm a type 1 diabetic, anytime my blood sugar starts to do something a little crazy. I had shoulder surgery 2 weeks ago. I was using this a lot when the pain was too much. And if done relaxed, it can be a form of breathe light. Taking 2 breaths a minute for 20 minutes, it starts to get really hard near the end there because you're not breathing as much as your body is used to. But in 8, hold 5, out 12, hold 5. Cognitive reset protocol. And you can go to my website, download it for free. The recording is 3 minutes long with 2 minutes of guided breath work. Everyone has access to it. I don't gatekeep that one. That's everyone can use it for free. And just the amount of peace it gives my mind in 3 minutes, it's pretty awesome. Well, for me, if other people like, Dr. Vile's anti-anxiety breath, in 4, hold 7, out 8, awesome. That's a great one. Normal box breathing, where it's the same ratio, 4, 4, 4, 4, really awesome. Just lengthening the exhale is helpful. And my favorite question is, what breath work should I use for XYZ scenario? Whatever one you happen to remember. There's
One you
no,
got.
the one you got. And so I like 8, 5, 12, 5. I enjoy numbers. So being able to count, and I count in my mind, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That gives my brain something to focus on. That's not a rambunctious toddler or a presentation I'm about to do where it's like, okay, imposter syndrome, you know, they're going to see through you. Everyone's going to know. Like that voice in my brain, I'm like, can you count for me? So I can calm you down and not really bring you to the forefront before I go up and give a presentation. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are out there who are really good at what you do and still getting imposter syndrome, congratulations on being in a student mindset. Keep learning. Keep learning. The second you stop and think you know enough, you don't. Keep learning. Um, and it's that ability to stay flexible, to know that it's not one breathwork pattern for any given situation, that it can be anything. I just have a bunch of tools. I get familiar at using them so that when I'm in a stressful state, I have a toolbox to pull from rather than thinking this should fix this, because that's not how it works. And I mean, even if the exercises seem silly, because I don't necessarily know a lot of people who do the movements they do in the gym out in the real world. So these exercises may seem weird while you're doing them, but you're doing it to exercise a muscle. So please don't misconstrue breath work as, well, he said 8, 5, 12, 5 will work when I'm anxious. The first time I'm anxious, I'm going to use this. It's not going to work. Never learn how to fight while you're in one. You need to practice
Oh,
this beforehand. So it's called breath work for a reason. Practice these tools. Become familiar with what resonates with you. Find a coach that resonates with you. Male, female, doesn't matter. European, American. Find the person that you like to listen to, and then ask them who their coach is. I don't work with anyone who doesn't have a coach because I need help. You need help. To assume that we've got this on our own, there's so many great minds out there to learn from, which is why I love watching. I mean, shameless plug, while I'm watching your podcast, I love your context and perspective that you give people. So it's find the context and perspective that resonates with you, and then find the context and perspective that influence their choices.
awesome. Chuck, this is fantastic. This is exactly why I wanted you on the back on the show, because the information you're giving out is life-changing information. And if anyone will just engage in it, I guarantee if you're listening to this, if you do the things Chuck is saying, it will change your life forever. And everything about how you function and move through life will just be better and brighter. Chuck, you did mention they could go on your website to get that free download of the Cognitive Breath Reset. But how, if somebody wants to work with you or they want to get the
Oh.
rest of your material, where can they go?
So head to my website, icedvikingbreathworks.com, or ivbw.com if you don't want to type in that whole mouthful of a name. And on Sundays and Mondays, I do free breathwork sessions. Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, Mondays at 9 p.m. Pacific. If you can't afford to work with me, that's okay. You can ask any question you want in these breathwork sessions. I'll try and answer them as best I can. And I always send the recordings out for free. No one's ever got to pay for that. And if you want to work with me one on one, or your company wants to work with me one on one, shoot me an email and we'll see what we can figure out. But as Tim has said before, I don't know what your business needs until I talk to you. I have tools that can be effective and can make things easier, but until we sit down and you tell me what problems you've got, I don't have a solution for you. There is no cookie cutter answer. I need to know what affects your business specifically, or you specifically, before I can give you a correct and informed answer. I don't know unless you tell me, and I'm not going to assume, because that's where a lot of problems happen.
Chuck, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Now go, press reset, and then get outside and play.